Hello and welcome to another episode of Insurance in Canada. I'm your host, Rick Pineda. Thank you so much for joining me. On today's episode, we're looking at three articles. Our first article involves a new type of cyber attack that could affect the insurance industry. Our second article looks at the upcoming reforms to Alberta automobile insurance and some possible rumblings that the Alberta government may be backtracking on those reforms. And our last article looks at a new liability issue when it comes to accidents involving electric vehicles. So without further ado, let's take a look at insurance in the news. So our first article today looks at a new type of cyber attack that could potentially affect the insurance industry if it isn't affecting the insurance industry currently. It's a hybrid type of attack, cyber attack, which is a new term I haven't heard of before. So let's take a look at what we're talking about. Why hybrid cyber attacks are an insurance industry threat. These hybrid attacks impact both first and third parties. KPMG is seeing more hybrid cyber attacks targeting both first and third parties as well as threat actors working together, experts at the firm said last week during its 2025 insurance conference in Toronto. During a cyber insurance and cybersecurity session, conference attendees heard examples of cyber attacks on insurers and third-party administrators. In one case, two major threat actors worked together to execute a social engineering attack against employees to get into Salesforce CRM, which is Customer Relationship Management platforms, says Mike Rosalind, Senior Management of Cyber Defense at KPMG in Canada. Is particularly interesting because technically it could be a first-party incident because you have the employee being abused from social engineering, Rosalind said. Could be a third-party incident because the entire attack takes place within Salesforce's SaaS, software as a service or online solution. In the attack against Allianz Life, the stolen data wasn't necessarily proprietary, highly sensitive insurance data, he says. It's sales information, but it's still potential names, dates of birth, addresses, payment information, stuff like that. I would argue that that is still sensitive insurance information, but agree to disagree. At least 1.54 million customers, financial professionals, and select employees were believed to be effective. Rosalind says KPMG is seeing more and more of these hybrid attacks that may impact first and third parties, but also are taking two sophisticated threat actors in this case. One's a very common ransomware operator, and the other one's a more common initial access broker, or the bad guys that you go to get access to a company working together to deliver this over and over and over again across the industry. It all comes back to strong cyber hygiene or practices to protect personal information and devices from cyber threats. Most of the attacks we are seeing and most attacks we're talking about, be it ransomware, third-party breaches, even social engineering, can often be defeated with solid cyber fundamentals and cyber hygiene. Rosalind said cyber hygiene and cyber fundamentals are the name of the game. Which is true. The human aspect is always going to be your weakest link. You can have all the fanciest protection software, firewalls, whatnot, but it's the social engineering targeting the employees of the organization you're trying to infiltrate to get them to allow you into the system unintentionally, obviously. That's always going to be your weakest link. So you can do all the training, do all the fundamentals, shoring up the fundamentals all you'd like, but in the end, a lapse in judgment is going to be a IT's worst nightmare when it comes to trying to protect their system. Back to the articles. Industry professionals should look at their supply chain, how much confidence you have in their security outlook, and what you're doing to protect yourself from your own third parties, he advised. Generally speaking, average incidents costs for Canadian claims are trending downward from a high of 2 million in 2022 to 753 in 2024, Rosalind says, citing 2025 statistics from Net Diligence. That looks a little low to me, comments Imran Pira, managing partner and head of complex risk at Jones Delory Insurance Management. That's a fluid, real-time stat that we're updating on a daily basis. It's a bit of a moving target. Rosalind attributes better cyber resilience to declining incident costs. I believe in a lot of cases it has to do more with the ability to respond, and then the resilience on the organization's back end, so you're not completely rip and replacing everything because of hardware fault or lack of backups. The cyber market has come a long way over the past few years, from days when a lot of insurers exited cyber portfolios. Pure adds, we've seen more insurers enter the marketplace, taking over vacant books, he says, adding that global insurers are also opening shop in Canada. Claims frequency and severity is increasing, but because there's much more supply than demand, pricing has bottomed out, Pure says. It is so inexpensive to buy cyber insurance right now, particularly if you work with a good consultant or good broker to position your profile with a positive light. That is very true. How long that's going to remain inexpensive is going to be another question altogether. There's never going to be any let up when it comes to bad elements always trying to access a corporation's system. So due diligence, yep. But it's always a never-ending fight between trying to safeguard your systems from those who try to access for their own gains. So some days it works, but like I said, all it takes is a lapse in judgment and one of the users to have your whole house of cards basically fall apart. But hopefully in the future, AI can play a part in trying to add to a cybersecurity suite. But AI, just like any program, is always going to have its vulnerabilities as well. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out in the future. Our next article looks at the upcoming changes to automobile insurance in Alberta. There's two provinces, Alberta and Ontario, that's seeing major reforms in their automobile insurance. Ontario is taking place July 1st of this year. Alberta's takes place January 1st of 2027. But as I was saying at the intro, there are some rumblings that the Alberta government may be reconsidering some of these reforms. So let's see what the article has to say. Where Alberta still see auto insurance reforms, a recent UCP resolution proposes repealing Care First and returning to at-fault-based insurance. Last weekend's United Conservative Party of Alberta, and this article is from December 2nd, so last weekend being quite a few weekends ago. Annual general meeting heard a resolution to repeal the province's upcoming auto insurance reform set to take place January 1st, 2027. The policy resolution was presented at the UCP's annual general meeting in Edmonton at the end of November, receiving about 75% support on the convention floor. It proposes repealing the upcoming Care First legislation, returning to at-fault-based insurance, repealing the no-fault insurance legislation in Alberta, and returning to a tort-based system aligns with conservative values by promoting personal responsibility and accountability, ensuring fair compensation based on fault, and reducing fraudulent claims. I argue whether the tort-based system really aligns with conservative values, in the sense that, yes, there's the accountability aspect. However, the no-fault based system, where you're compensated just for your injuries, regardless of who's at fault, does have a social benefit as well. Because if somebody is injured in an automobile accident, even though they may be 100% at fault in the accident, still suffering your injuries, being unable to work, eventually that person, if they have no other way to seek compensation, is going to become a burden on the welfare system of that particular province. So a complete tort-based system, and tort-based systems takes a long time to resolve as well, as opposed to a no-fault system where innocent parties receive compensation uh, for their injuries within a much shorter time frame than you see in a tort-based system, where many instances the innocent third party is going to have to take the case to court, and as we know, taking cases through courts can last months, if not even years, to resolve. So there are pros and cons when it comes to a no-fault system as opposed to a tort-based system, but in my experience, no-fault systems serve the general public more than the tort-based system. But let me know if you agree with me, disagree with me in the comments. What's your opinion when it comes to these two different systems? This approach encourages safer driving behaviors and ensures that only legitimate claims are compensated. But Alberta drivers should be quite concerned by the call to reverse Care First reforms, says Aaron Sutherland, Vice President of the Insurance Bureau of Canada's Pacific and Western regions. Care First is going to dramatically improve the quality of auto insurance product that you're buying in Alberta. It's going to be more faster benefits to make sure you're getting what you need to recover when you need it. It's also looking increasingly likely that's going to improve the affordability of auto insurance in Alberta, so better care and better rates. I'd like to see that statistics that he's looking at to indicate that these changes are going to improve rates in Alberta, but maybe he knows something that I don't. That's, entirely possible, but I had that nagging suspicion in the back of my mind that it's going to backfire when it comes to rates for automobile insurance in Alberta. Back to the article, the Alberta Civil Trial Lawyers Association says in a press release Monday it supports the resolution. No kidding. Switching to a no-fault system affects the bottom lines when it comes to lawyers, because in a no-fault system you have no need for lawyers since you're not going to court. The right to seek justice through the courts is a fundamental civil right that needs to be protected, the association argues. We call on Premier Danielle Smith to intervene personally and direct officials to drop the no-fault approach immediately. The association says it is telling for a governing party to see a flagship policy so resoundingly repudiated by its own membership. ACTLA Chair Gillian Gamez adds, this reflects a significant lack of confidence in the direction charted by the Ministry of Treasury Board of Finance. Such resolutions are not binding, though some resolutions from last year's UCB annual journal meeting have become law, the Edmonton Journal reports. Under Care First, insurers will provide medical and rehabilitation benefits and income replacement benefits to consumers following a collision regardless of fault, Canadian Underwriter reported in late August. Those injured in an accident will be able to access benefits quickly within weeks versus months or years, according to the government. Without the need to sue in court, injured consumers will also still be able to sue an at-fault driver in limited cases. Sutherland says Care First includes the ability to sue for criminal code convictions like impaired driving and Traffic Safety Act convictions. Importantly, you will be able to sue for any out-of-pocket expenses related to your care, which is true, and that also exists here in Ontario, but the conditions for you to sue for your injuries as you suffer in Alberta in a automobile accident are different than what Alberta has. Your ability to sue is based on your severity of your injury and has nothing to do with what the other party was charged with. So even except for Quebec and Manitoba, and in some cases in Saskatchewan, every other province and territory in Canada does have the ability to some degree to sue for your injuries that you suffer in an automobile accident. But in all those cases that you could, there would be conditions in order to do that. The whole point of no fault is not only to seek compensation faster for innocent third parties, as well as at fault drivers as well, but also to keep the courts from being clogged up with a lot of cases all of a sudden being pushed through the courts to resolve that previously wouldn't have been gone to the courts. So there's that aspect as well when trying to determine no fault versus tort-based system. He acknowledges Alberta has some of the highest premiums in the country, and the province's rate cap needs to be lifted for Care First to be truly successful. In late October, consumer advocacy group Fair Alberta, which claims to be powered by the ACTLA, accused the province of setting fixed dollar amounts to compensate accident victims For a range of injuries, Sutherland told Canadian underwriters at the time the criticisms may be misleading. He used the example of a journeyman tradesperson who loses part of a hand in a collision. Fair says that person would receive a lump sum of only $41,592. They are pointing to the permanent impairment regulations, saying if you have this injury, you get this and nothing more, and it's true. That's what you get for your permanent impairment, he says, but they're ignoring the fact that you will continue to get your wage benefit for as long as those are needed. If you're not able to work for the rest of your life, you will continue to receive that income replacement. And similarly with the care, making sure you had maximum medical recovery. Care First is going to have the most generous benefits in the country if you're injured in a collision, vastly greater than what you get today, Sutherland says. That's the point there that makes me question whether rates in Alberta would really decrease by enacting this Care First model, because if you're offering the most generous benefits in the country, well, it's the policyholders that have to pay for that. So that's my opinion anyways. As an industry, we're still waiting for some key pieces from the government on what this model is going to look like so that we can deliver it for January 2027. Sutherland says, I suggest the path they're on looks increasingly like it's going to improve affordability while vastly improving care. So, I mean, this is already passed as far as I know. This law is already passed in Alberta, enacting these changes for January 1st, 2027. So that's why the UCP convention notwithstanding, I really don't see the government of Alberta rescinding these changes, because we'll take having to put forth another bill into the Alberta legislature to repeal these changes coming up, and I don't see, and that doesn't look good for any government that's going to all of a sudden go back on a piece of legislation that they're the ones who introduced, pushed through, and passed. So for you folks in Alberta, like I said, regardless of what the general meeting put forth, I don't see this ever changing at this point. Maybe sometime in the future after this has gone through and we see the ramifications of these changes. But no, I think you folks in Alberta, you're on the road to these changes for January 1st, 2027, and there's no exits on this particular road. Lastly, let's look at a new liability issue when it comes to accidents involving electric vehicles. Some electric vehicles have electronic door handles, so that the door handle that you use to open the actual vehicle isn't physically connected to the latch itself as it is in traditional vehicles. Pulling on the latch just sends a signal to the vehicle to open the door. But there's some issues that have popped up here in Canada and also in other countries as well, where the vehicle gets into an accident and the doors aren't able to be opened because of a power failures. So some of the liability issues surrounding that. So let's take a look. Who's on the hook if passengers can't escape a burning EV? An October 2024 accident along Toronto's lakeshore involving an electric vehicle has raised concern among insurance and legal experts. An October 2024 accident along Toronto's lakeshore involving an electric vehicle has raised concern among insurance and legal experts. Following reports, a surviving passenger couldn't free herself from the burning wreck because the crash knocked out the vehicle's electrical system. News reports at the time said the driver lost control of the vehicle, which then crashed and caught fire. The driver was killed, and a car-wide power shutdown meant electronically operated door levers failed. Although a manual door release existed, the rear seat passenger who survived the crash couldn't locate it because she wasn't familiar with the vehicle. Unable to open the rear passenger door, she was saved when the passing truck driver stopped, broke the EV's window, and helped her escape. Other EV accident reports from recent years show passenger egress was an issue in similar crashes involving fires in the US and Korea. Also in China as well, this has been an issue. I believe last year, 13 people in China lost their lives because of this exact same scenario where the vehicle got into an accident and the vehicle caught on fire and the passengers weren't able to exit the vehicle because of the loss of power, no longer was able to open the doors because of the electronic door system. The crashes have one thing in common, notes Matt Owen, a lawyer at Zarek Taylor Grossman Hanrahan. The vehicles involved are all traveling at very high speeds. That means in many cases when the vehicle's electricals failed, there may be questions about whether its occupants were dead, unconscious, or too badly injured to exit the vehicle independently, even if internal exit systems had been easy to operate, he says. Then there's the unusual nature of fires caused by lithium-ion batteries in electric vehicles, which ignite in a process called thermal runaway, which are intensely hot and difficult to put out. News reports indicate the truck driver who assisted in Toronto's October crash said the flames rose around 6 feet in the air. It's not the same as gasoline fires in normal cars, notes Owen, and that's very true. EV battery fires are very intense and they happen very quickly, which is why if you're involved in an accident in an electric vehicle, it's critical that everybody exit that vehicle and get away from the vehicle, because you never know if a fire is going to start, even in a minor accident. While the relative novelty of EVs means battery fires and egress problems have been uncommon, that's starting to change. Increased frequency of events whereby power loss impacts passenger safety makes manufacturers' arguments about the rarity of the events more difficult to stand on, Owen says. This is a problem staring the manufacturers and the safety regulators in the face because it's not just a one-off. He has the regulators' reactions will depend on accident trends, since their mandates include ensuring their actions don't stifle innovation. Okay, but safety should always trump innovation in all cases. I mean, it seems like an easy fix for me to mandate the vehicles have that are always built with that mechanical system as the primary system to open the doors. I mean, it's all fancy and great to see these innovations when it comes to these sort of things. I see these Teslas with that type of system. It looks very cool in all that, but quite frankly, if that's my choice as to whether to look cool or be 100% safe 100% of the time, I'm going to take that safety aspect. Determining whether there are enough issues to question whether EVs are safe for Canadian roadways won't be a quick process, Owen says, but you would think it would be something on regulators' radar, and you think it'd be something that also on the electric vehicle manufacturing industry's radar, that these manual releases need to be more intuitive, obvious, and available because there is a unique fire risk caused by lithium-ion batteries. Transport Canada notes under its regulatory framework, companies are responsible for certifying that their vehicle meets Transport Canada's safety requirements by conducting thorough testing of their vehicles and maintaining appropriate test records. It adds a number of factors may impact the ability of vehicle occupants to exit any vehicle following a high-speed, high-severity crash, including the vehicle's post-crash conditions and potential occupants' injuries and mobility, as well as their cognitive state. From an insurance standpoint, many issues surround these types of EV crashes could fall under product liability, says Adam Mitchell, CEO of Mitch Insurance. Even though the high speeds involved suggest a victim could also sue the insurance coverage of the person behind the wheel, the court would likely find contributory negligence on a couple of parties, including the automaker, because it would have been catastrophic had the doors been able to work and let the passengers out. So that litigator is probably going to be pointing at a number of parties and their respective insurance companies and bring them into court to let them untangle the accusations. In response to these claims, automakers would rely on product liability coverage. Sure, but if this particular issue never gets addressed, how much longer until insurance companies no longer want to insure these automakers because of this huge potential liability exposure that can happen when any accident occurs? I don't know. If the manufacturer got sued, then it would be product liability coverage that would respond. If the manufacturer wins, the insurer pays to defend them for the lawsuit, and the car is not actually found in court to be defective. If the court decides they're not negligent, and this is a 1 in a million accident, then that's likely the end of it, says Mitchell. If they lose, then the insurer pays damages up to the limits of the policy, and then the manufacturer gets to decide if it's an issue that requires recalling the vehicle and retrofitting, or the regulator steps in and enforces a recall. I'm not sure how you can recall something that's a design aspect of the vehicle itself. What steps are you going to take to resolve that if it's part of the entire system of the vehicle to have these electronic door handles part of the vehicle itself? What's a recall going to do? In the latter scenario, if the manufacturer carries recall insurance coverage, that policy would be triggered. Adoption rates for EVs suggest that if these kinds of accidents continue to happen, it may impact coverage costs for consumers, for sure. Mitchell points out that take-all-comers rules ensure drivers won't be turned down when applying for personal auto policies, and that's great and all that, but how much is the insurance going to be costing for these electric vehicles? I mean, people talk about one of the bonuses of owning an electric vehicle is all the cost savings and the various maintenance aspects, but if it's going to cost you twice as much to insure an electric vehicle as it is a internal combustion engine vehicle because of things like this, then where's the incentive for anyone to buy an electric vehicle? So yeah, take all comers rule is great, but if every insurance company is going to be charging, 2-3 times more to insure these electric vehicles because of all of these increased risks that keep popping up when it comes to electric vehicles, then the age of the electric vehicle that so many governments hope would come to, help them out in their ever never-ending quest to chase, net zero status may never come, but that's something that governments should start taking into account, the balance between trying to achieve these goals and safety and affordability for the members of the public. So that is it for me for today. Thank you so much for joining me. If you like what I do here, please leave a like. Please comment in the comments section about anything I talked about today. Please follow Insurance in Canada on Twitter/X. And until next time, bye-bye.